Hello again, everybody. I am Coach Jess. So today we are actually going to be demonstrating a regeneration session, this time with an emphasis on lower body pulling and upper body pushing. So just like our previous regeneration series, we are dividing up today's session into two separate blocks. So we're going to start with the upper body. So we've got 3 different movements, and then we're going to finish with the lower body. Same exact thing, 3 different movements. We're going to do each block 2 times through in real time. So I'll be demonstrating the movements and you guys can just kind of follow along with me. All right, so first up, we are going to start with the upper body. So we're going to start with a chest stretch and some floor slides to kind of open up the chest. In general, when we're talking about regeneration or corrective exercise, you kind of just want to do the opposite of the positions you find yourself in daily life. So most of us, we tend to be very hunched forward on the anterior chain. So that's kind of everything in front. This tends to get very tight. And so really to reverse that, we need to open everything back up. So that means releasing the musculature on the front and also activating the muscles on the back side. Okay, so first up, we are going to start with a chest stretch, which especially if you're like me and during this work from home time, you find yourself hunched over a lot, this is going to feel really, really yummy. So you don't need any fancy equipment for this. I like to use just a couple of pillows stacked. Now, you actually want to keep the hips anchored on the ground. You're going to lean back and kind of arch your back to extend over the pillows. So from here, hands are going to touch together up top, and then I drop down into this 90-90, think field goal position. I'm just going to hang out here to open up the chest. So in this position, I've got gravity assisting me into the stretch. And I'm belly breathing here, so I'll take a few deep breaths. And then we're going to start our floor slides with our arms. So once you get a nice solid stretch through the arms and the chest, you're going to tuck the elbows as close to the body as you can, keeping the hands as close to the floor as possible, and then you're going to extend, reach up nice and tall, get a full stretch, and then repeat. We're going to do that 10 to 15 times, totally at your pace. So we're tucking the elbows and coming up to full flexion at the top. Really reach, get nice and extended. And I find that one of the things that helps is as you bring the elbows down, you want to try to pinch the shoulder blades together like you're squeezing a quarter between them. So all the way down, and then reach, extend up, going into shoulder flexion. And then slowly, you can bring yourself back up to a seated position. So that's our chest stretch with some floor slides. Next up, we're going to go into scat push-ups from a quadruped position just to try to mobilize the shoulder blades. Sometimes they can get stuck in place, so we want to mobilize them to get them moving again. So we're going to take a quadruped position on our hands and knees. Shoulders are stacked right above the wrists, hips above the knees. And we're just going to pinch our shoulder blades together in the back, kind of collapsing into the stretch, and then push, reach, extend, drive through the ground. So once again, melt into the stretch, and then push through the earth. Melt to the stretch, push through the earth. So same exact thing, we're gonna do this about 10 to 15 times. If you're pressed for time, you can do a few less. If you have a little more time or you want to get a little bit more ability in stretching, you can do a few more. Good, so really emphasize, exaggerate the movement through those shoulder blades. So remember, the goal is to kind of unstick them. We'll do one more here. All right, so next up, we're going to do a behind the back, chest stretch. So I'm going to use just a little strap. You can also forego this. So a couple different options here. You can go from a kneeling position if you like. Now, if you don't have good shoulder range of motion, I would recommend using a strap You can use also just a towel if you like. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. And you're slowly just going to drop into this stretch and let the arms fall overhead. And once again, we're gonna belly breathe. So about 5 to 6 deep breaths now. If you want a deeper stretch, you can come up to a standing position. So I like to do a nice wide stance for better balance. And then you can actually interlock the hands with one another and just let them drop back. You don't want to force this stretch. Just allow the arms to fall as far as they can. Deep belly breathe. Release that neck. 5 to 6 deep breaths. Every time you exhale, you kind of want to imagine the muscles of the body deflating and relaxing into the stretch so you can get a little bit deeper. So exhale, melt a little bit more into the stretch. To come up, you're going to drop the hands down to the side, slowly release them to the ground. You can lower back to the ground or stand up, just take it slow. You might be a little bit dizzy at first. And then we're going to go back to the beginning for our second round. So once again, setting up for our open chest stretch with some floor slides. All right, so we're grounding the hips. Now for a different variation, we can do arm angels. So instead of the floor slides where we're going from a down position, elbows tucked, reaching up towards the sky, we can change to arm angels. So it's just like making snow angels. And notice I am keeping the back of my hands on the ground. So I'm really forcing open the chest. Full range of motion all the way down to the body, all the way up till they reach at the top. Same thing, about 10 to 15 here. Belly breathing as I'm going through this entire series. I'm letting gravity just kind of open up the chest while I'm going through the movement. Sometimes static stretching alone isn't enough, so we need to add in a little bit of movement to help increase our mobility and flexibility. So I'll do one more here. All right, we'll bring the arms down to the side. Try to raise up the torso. Same time on each side. Then we're gonna flip back over for our step push-up. So remember, quadruped position here. Keep the body stacked. Melt into the stretch and then drive through the earth. Let the shoulder blades come together and then push them apart. We're gonna do that 10 to 15 times. Keep those elbows straight, so all of the movement should be coming from the shoulder blades. Head stays neutral. Try to relax any tension through the neck. Remember, melt into the stretch and drive through the earth and reach. Melt and then drive. 10 to 15 times. At whatever pace feels comfortable for you. Do one more. All right, now I'm going to repeat the behind the back chest stretch. So I prefer to go from a standing position so I can get a little bit more of a stretch. Interlock the hands behind the back, slowly bend forward so we're reaching, letting the hands and arms drop forward as far as they can, releasing through the neck. If you want, you can kind of shake out the neck a little bit just to make sure that there's no tension hanging out there. 5 to 6 deep breaths in this position. One more deep breath. All right, we're going to release the hands, bring it down to the side, then back down, lowering down to the ground before coming up. All right, so next we're going to start on our lower body series. So once again, we have 3 movements. We're going to go 2 rounds through. Going to move some of this equipment off to the side, give us a little more space. So the first movement we have is going to be windshield wipers. So a lot of the time we find that our body's mainly working in this sagittal plane, so a lot of forward and backward movement. We don't get a lot of side to side, working the frontal plane, or transverse plane where we're actually getting rotation. Okay, so those are some of the things we want to keep in mind, not only when we're warming up the body, but also when we're cooling it down. So for the windshield wipers, you're going to sit up, toes and knees at about 90 degrees, feet a little bit wider than shoulder distance. Hands you can rest down to the side behind you, and then I'm just going to drop both knees down to the side. So notice as this knee comes down, it's level with the heel of the opposite foot. It's okay if your back hip comes up off the ground a little bit. So we're just going to do 5 on each side for a total of 10. And you really want to press those knees down to the ground. So I'm getting a lot of rotation through that hip. We don't tend to move like this in daily life. So a lot of times we get some joint capsule tightness, especially into our hips. That can radiate up or down the kinetic chain, causing pain in the body in different places. So we want to make sure that all of our connective tissues stay mobile. All right, I lost count. We're going to do one more. We're going to call that 10. All right, next up, we're going to do one of my favorite stretches. It's a little bit awkward for most people when they start it, but I promise it feels really, really good. It's called a rollover V-sit. So make sure you have space so you don't break anything or smack anybody in the face. All right, it's called a rollover V-sit. So it's 2 different movements. Hands are going to be out to the side for a little bit of support. So first off, you're going to roll back. Notice I'm rolling onto my shoulder blades and not onto my neck. I'm getting a nice little stretch through the low back here. And I'm using my hands to gauge how far back I want to go. My elbows are supporting me. So I'm staying nice and stable. I'm not rolling to the sides. Once you get a good stretch through here, I'm going to slowly rock forward into a V-sit, reaching up and forward. So we're going to do that 5 times. Now notice as I rock forward, I'm staying lifted through the torso. I'm not hunching in, okay? We just tried to fix that in block 1, so you want to stay lifted and reach. So we're going back, get a good stretch through the low back, come forward, V-sit, reach up and out. This is number 3, we're going to do 5. Stay lifted through the torso. So as I come up, I'm reaching for the diagonal. I'm not reaching straight out in front of me, I'm reaching up and out. Last one here. Come forward, V-sit, big reach. All right, legs come in. Last up, we are going to do one of my favorite stretches. It's a supine figure 4 stretch. So some of you may have seen a different variation of this. I prefer to do this either up against a couch or a wall because you can get a little bit better stretch. So you want to make sure that you have a wall or something sturdy in front of you that you're not going to kick. This couch may move. All right, so try to make sure the hips are grounded depending on how much tightness is in your hips. You might actually have them raise up off the ground a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cross my ankle right onto my knee. I'm going to hang out here and I should feel stretch in the hip of the crossed leg. So I'm going to hang out here, 5 to 6 deep breaths. Now, if you're not getting enough of a stretch, you can actually inch forward up against the couch or wall so that I'm getting more of a stretch through here. So 5 to 6 deep breaths. Belly breathing first. Long inhales and exhales. And then we'll switch to the opposite side. So one of the things you might notice is that one side might have a little bit more tightness than the other. That is very, very normal. Okay, most athletes were a little bit imbalanced. What's important is that you know how your body tends to move into dysfunction. Okay, do you have more tightness on your left hip, on your right? For me personally, I tend to get more tightness on my left side, transfers up into my lower back at times as well. So I need to be very proactive about what I do to try to make sure that that doesn't get too out of hand. So when you're doing these stretches, pay attention to your body and what you're noticing. Where are you holding a lot of that tension and tightness? Where are you noticing dysfunction? One more breath here. Nice long exhale. All right, then uncross the leg. We're gonna go back to the start. So for our windshield wipers, I'm gonna change the view so you can see from the side. Remember, toes, knees, 90 degrees. We're going feet a little bit wider than shoulder distance. As I'm dropping the knee down, it's level with the heel of the opposite foot. So I'm doing 5 on each side for a total of 10. I'm really driving those knees down to the ground, especially the one that's going into internal rotation. So make sure you're getting that floor contact. Don't force it if it's resistant, and it absolutely won't go, but you want to try to get full mobility there. Last one. And we'll take it into our rollover V-sit. So we've got 5 reps here. So rocking back, using your hands for support, gauge how far you want to go. Slowly coming forward into a V-sit. We're going to do that 5 times. Make sure when you reach, you're reaching up and out. If you want to hang out here, get a little bit more traction through the low back, you are more than welcome to. Just make sure that you're controlled through this movement. You don't want to be flailing all over the place. Last one, nice stretch, little gymnastics finish. All right, then finally, we're gonna finish up with that figure 4 stretch. Now, I'm gonna show you an additional variation while you're in this stretch. So remember, if you want a deeper stretch, get closer to the wall or couch, whatever you're propping your feet against. Cross the ankle over the knee. Hanging out here for about 5 to 6 deep breaths. Now, remember what I said before, sometimes static stretching isn't enough. We need a little bit of movement. So this is when I start to add in some transverse movement, some rotation. And so what I'll do is this foot that's up top, I'm going to rotate it. So my right hip is staying on the ground. I'm just getting a little more stretch in a slightly different position. So I'm stretching out those glute muscle fibers. And then also, you can move counterclockwise, rotate to the opposite side. So you might find that one position feels a little bit better to you than the other, but play around with a lot of these different positions as you're stretching. Okay, so our goal is really to open up these hips, improve that joint capsule tightness. And you might just kind of want to rock back and forth a little bit. I can really feel that in the capsule. So I'm breaking up any adhesions that might be in that connective tissue. All right, finish up. We're going to do last side. So notice this side, deciding to go this way first. So I'm dropping the knee down instead of the foot. That's just kind of what felt right for my body. So during stretching, regeneration, warm-up, I always instruct my athletes to really pay attention to what their body is telling them. Your body wants to be at homeostasis. It wants to be in a good position. We've kind of gotten into this habit of thinking that pain is normal. It's not, okay? That's your body telling you something abnormal is going on and it wants you to pay attention and address it. We've kind of started just ignoring those things. So as you're going through a lot of these stretches and movements, really pay attention to what your body's telling you. What's the feedback you're getting? Where is your body finding relief? Where is it moving more into discomfort? This side feels really, really good. I'm actually noticing something as I go to this side. So there's a little bit of tightness here. I'm working out. So I'm hanging out a little bit longer here. All right. Slowly come back up, return to a seated position. All right, so one of the things that I want to kind of just make sure that I add in is I'm asked a lot of the time, how long should I hang out in a stretch? Honestly, there's a lot of different guidelines for this. In general, I would say long enough to actually make a difference. okay? Most people, they rush stretches because let's face it, stretching is really, really uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. And also, on that same note, there's a difference between discomfort and pain, okay? So stretching, especially if you're very, very immobile, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but it shouldn't feel painful. Pain is when you get that kind of inner sense, that red flag goes off and your body's like, ooh, I don't think I should be doing that. Pay attention to that, okay? Like we just said, pay attention to the feedback your body's giving you. Now, uncomfortable is something else, okay? We need to kind of slowly push our body past its limits, okay? That's how we're actually going to increase our mobility or restore our mobility, okay? By pushing our body out of its comfort zone. Okay, but that doesn't mean we're going from 0 to 100. We're going to take small incremental steps. So as a general rule of thumb, as you're going through stretching, I tell my athletes to rate the stretch on a number from 0 to 10, 0 being they feel absolutely no stretch whatsoever, they can hang out there all day, 10 being this is max stretch, I feel like something's going to snap. Okay, so obviously we don't want to be at either end, we want to be somewhere in the middle. Usually I try to have my athletes find a point where they're sitting around a healthy 7. Okay, so it's uncomfortable, they can feel the stretch, but it's also not that 10, I feel like something's going to snap and I'm going to hurt myself. Okay, so hang out in that 7. Now for each stretching session, you might find that that starting number starts to change over time. That's the goal, right? If you're stretching, you want to see progress. So if the first time you're going through some of these mobility exercises, it starts at a 7, hang out in that position until it comes down to a 6, maybe even a 5, okay? If it doesn't come down in the first minute, don't freak out, don't panic, okay? Try adding in some of the movements that we showed you. Okay, because remember, sometimes stretching in one position isn't enough. We need to add in a little bit of movement, but be patient with your body, okay? You have to consider, we spend a lot of time doing our sports, a lot of time doing activities of daily life, and then we spend like a minute maybe in a stretch position and we expect it to be the magical fix, and it just doesn't work that way, okay? So give your body time to actually relax into these stretches. All right, guys, that's it for our upper body push and lower body pull regeneration session for today. Stay tuned for some more. And if there's anything in particular that you want to see in some of these future videos, feel free to send me a DM, comment below, or shoot me a message. Okay, I want to make sure that these videos are giving you guys all the information that you need. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys later.